And it is as follows. On Wednesday evening at 7:21 p.m., she posted, multiple people have asked me what the status is on Annie Guthrie's car after it was taken for processing in the case.
You only keep the ones that are involved in some way, shape, or form or have some sort of evidentiary value. You're not.
It came out of nowhere. I was over at Nancy's house, which is about 10 minutes away, and I got a call like something's going down at Annie's house. So I raced over here. This is Annie's house behind me. And when I got here, there were 3 deputies that had just arrived. They have private security here. NBC hired private security, I'm told. And it's...
You thought this was just another kidnapping headline, right? A missing girl, a worried family. Cameras flashing, sympathy pouring in.
Wrong.
Because what just happened in the Annie Guthrie case didn't just shift the narrative, it shattered it completely. Let me ask you something. Why would someone finally break their silence and somehow make everything worse? Why would a single statement about divorce rumors send the entire internet into chaos, right in the middle of a kidnapping investigation? Yeah, that's exactly what just happened. Annie Guthrie, the calm, composed face everyone trusted, just spoke out. And instead of shutting down the noise, she dropped one line that raised more questions than answers. Now people aren't just asking, where is Nancy? They're asking something way darker. What was really happening inside that house before she disappeared? Because here's where it gets uncomfortable. Leaked messages, strange timing, and whispers of something that was never meant to come out. Coincidence? Or cover-up? And trust me, what you're about to hear next isn't just messy. It's explosive. Because if this isn't just a kidnapping case, then what exactly are they hiding? Because once Annie said those words, everything people thought they understood started to fall apart. At first, it didn't look like much. Just another statement. Another attempt to calm the chaos. But the internet doesn't work like that. It doesn't listen, it dissects. Within minutes, that one line, "Things haven't been normal for a while," was everywhere. Clipped, reposted, slowed down,
Zoomed in.
People weren't just watching anymore. They were analyzing. And that's when the shift happened. Because suddenly, this wasn't about a missing person alone. This became about timing. And timing didn't make sense. Think about it. A family dealing with a disappearance. And right in the middle of that, divorce rumors explode? Not before. Not after. Right in the middle. Too random or too perfectly placed? That question alone was enough to pull millions of people deeper into the news. And then the past started resurfacing. Old interviews, public appearances, moments no one paid attention to before.
Now,
they looked different. There was a clip, just a few seconds long, where Annie pauses before answering a simple question. Back then, no one noticed. Now, that pause, it felt heavy. Like she was choosing her words carefully. Too carefully. Another video showed a family appearance. Smiles. Cameras. Everything looking perfect. But when people slowed it down frame by frame, something felt off. The smiles didn't reach the eyes. The body language didn't match the words. And once people see something like that, they can't unsee it. That's when theories started forming. Not small ones. Big ones. Some people claimed the family had been dealing with serious internal issues for months. Others went further. They suggested that whatever was happening inside that house wasn't just emotional tension. It was pressure. The kind that builds quietly. The kind that doesn't explode all at once, but cracks slowly until something finally breaks. And then came the messages. Unverified. Blurry. Impossible to confirm. But powerful enough to spread like wildfire. One line stood out more than anything else. "I can't keep pretending everything is okay in this house." Now pause for a second. If that message is even partially real, that changes everything. Because that means the news didn't start with Nancy's disappearance. It started before. Inside the house. Behind closed doors. Where no cameras were rolling. And suddenly, people weren't just asking what happened. They were asking what led up to it. And that's a very different question. Because when you start looking at what comes before an event, you start connecting dots. Sometimes dots that were never meant to be connected. And that's exactly what the internet did. Relentlessly. Some users started building timelines, mapping out public appearances, comparing dates, looking for patterns. And the more they looked, the more things stopped lining up. There were gaps, moments where things just went quiet. No posts. No updates. No visibility. At the time, it meant nothing. Now, it meant everything. Because silence in a news like this is never just silence. It's space. A space where something could have happened. Something no one saw. Something no one reported. And just when people thought they had reached the peak of speculation, another layer dropped. A supposed insider. Anonymous, of course. No name. No proof. Just a statement that spread faster than anything before it. According to them, investigators had already been aware of internal tensions within the household. Aware. Not surprised. Aware.
Now think about that.
If that's even remotely true, then this wasn't a sudden shock. It was something that had been quietly sitting in the background. Something that hadn't been made public. And that word, quietly, started raising even more questions. Why quietly? Why wasn't this information out there from the beginning? What else wasn't being shared? And more importantly,
Who knew what and when?
because once that idea enters the conversation, it changes everything. Now Annie's statement doesn't feel random anymore. It feels connected, like a piece of a bigger puzzle. A puzzle that no one fully understands yet, but everyone is trying to solve. And here's where it gets even more complicated. Because while some people started believing Annie was finally opening up, others saw something completely different. They saw hesitation. They saw gaps. They saw someone who wasn't telling the full news. Not necessarily lying, but not fully revealing. And in a situation like this, that's enough. Enough to turn uncertainty into suspicion. Enough to turn questions into accusations. And the internet, it doesn't wait for answers. It builds its own. Some said she was under pressure, that anyone in her position would struggle to speak clearly. Others weren't convinced. They pointed at the wording, the pauses, the way certain things were said and certain things weren't. Because sometimes, what someone doesn't say is louder than what they do. And that's exactly what people started focusing on. The missing pieces, the incomplete thoughts, the sentences that felt like they stopped just short of something bigger. And the more people watched, the more those gaps started to feel intentional. Like there was something sitting just beneath the surface. Something not fully revealed. Not yet. And maybe not by choice. Because pressure was building. Not just privately, but publicly. Millions of eyes. Every word under a microscope. Every reaction turned into a headline. That kind of attention. It doesn't just observe. It forces things. Forces statements. Forces responses. And sometimes forces mistakes. And right now, Annie was standing right in the middle of it. Every move she made was being watched. Every second of silence was being questioned. And every new detail was pushing the news further away from what it started as. Because this wasn't just about a disappearance anymore. It wasn't even just about a family. It had become something bigger. A narrative. A mystery layered with speculation, emotion, and unanswered questions. And the deeper people went, the darker it started to feel. Because if even a fraction of these theories are true, then what happened to Nancy might not be the beginning of the news. It might be the result of something that was already unfolding. Something that had been building long before anyone was paying attention. And if that's the case, then the real question isn't just where is Nancy? It's what was already happening before she disappeared. And more importantly, what hasn't been revealed yet. And just when people thought they had reached the deepest part of this news, something dropped that changed the tone completely. Not a rumor, not a theory, something far more dangerous. An audio clip. Short, distorted, almost too unclear to trust, but just clear enough to shake everything. At first, it appeared on a random account. No verification, no source. Within minutes, it was everywhere. Reposted, re-uploaded, analyzed. And here's the part that made everyone stop scrolling. The voice. People started claiming it sounded like Annie. Not confirmed, not proven, but similar enough to spark chaos. And what that voice allegedly said, that's where things turn dark. You don't understand what's happening in this house. Pause. We can't keep this contained anymore. Contained. That word alone set everything on fire, because now this wasn't just about tension. This sounded like something being hidden, something already out of control. And once that clip went viral, the internet did what it always does. It split. Some people called it fake immediately, edited, manipulated, another viral stunt. Others, they weren't so sure, because when they matched the tone, the pacing, the way certain words were stressed, it felt real, too real. And then came the detail that pushed everything over the edge: the timestamp. According to online investigators, and again, nothing officially confirmed, the audio supposedly matched a time just 48 hours before Nancy disappeared. 48 hours. Now stop and think about that. If that timing is even close to accurate, then whatever that voice was talking about was happening right before everything changed, right before the disappearance. And suddenly, the timeline wasn't just important, it became the entire news. Because now people weren't asking if something happened, they were asking what exactly happened in those final hours. And more importantly,
Who knew about it?
because Annie's earlier statement started to feel different now. Those pauses, that tension, that careful wording, it didn't feel like confusion anymore. It felt like pressure, like someone trying to speak without saying too much. And that idea, it spread faster than anything else. Because once people believe someone is holding back, they don't stop looking. They dig deeper, harder. And that's when another layer surfaced. A so-called insider. Again, anonymous. No identity, no confirmation. But the claim? Explosive. According to them, investigators had been quietly reviewing previous incidents connected to the household. Previous incidents. Not one, multiple. And here's the part that made people uneasy. These incidents were never made public. Read that again. Never made public. Which means what the audience has seen so far might not even be half the news. Now, the narrative didn't just feel incomplete. It felt controlled, like pieces were missing on purpose. And when people sense that, they start filling the gaps themselves. Some theories became darker, more specific, more uncomfortable. There were claims of arguments that went beyond normal disagreements. Claims of moments where things got intense, unstable. Again, nothing confirmed. But in a situation already filled with tension, even a rumor like that carries weight. And then came the document. A screenshot at first. Blurry, cropped, easy to dismiss. But something about it didn't fade away. Because inside that document were details. Small ones. The kind that don't usually appear in fake leaks. References to a previous incident inside the home. Something that allegedly happened weeks before Nancy disappeared. No cameras. No public report. No headlines. Just a mention. And one line stood out more than anything else. Subject appeared visibly distressed following the incident.
Subject.
Not named. Not identified. Just subject. And that one word, it opened a flood of questions. Who was it? Annie? Nancy? Someone else entirely? Because the document didn't say. It just left that gap and let the internet do the rest. People started connecting it back to everything. The messages, the audio, the live stream. Now Annie's statement. There were things happening in that house. Didn't feel vague anymore. It felt loaded, like a warning, or maybe a hint. Something that made sense only if you already knew what she was talking about. And if you didn't, then you were left trying to figure it out, just like everyone else. But the most unsettling part came next, because according to the same circulating claims, right after that alleged incident, there was a gap, a complete break in communication. Phone records, again unverified, showing hours of silence. No calls, no messages, nothing. And those hours? They've never been explained. Now connect that with everything else. The tension, the rumors, the audio clip, the document. It stops looking random. It starts looking connected, like pieces of something bigger, something that hasn't fully come out yet. And that's when the pressure reached another level. Because now it wasn't just the public watching. Media outlets started picking it up. Headlines began shifting. Not just missing person case anymore. Now it was New details raise questions about family dynamics. Unverified leaks spark debate online. Was there more happening behind closed doors? Careful wording, but clear direction. The focus was changing. And Annie? She was right at the center of it. Every past interview, rewatched. Every public appearance, reanalyzed. Even her silence became a statement. Because when someone is expected to speak, and they don't, people notice. And then came one final twist that no one saw coming. A report, again, circulating online, claimed Annie was preparing to release a second statement. A full one, detailed,
Direct.
something that would address everything. The rumors, the tension, the speculation. People waited, refreshing pages, watching accounts, expecting something big, something that would finally bring clarity. But it never came. Cancelled. No explanation. No update. Just silence. And that silence, it hit harder than anything before it. Because now people weren't just asking what happened. They were asking, what was she about to say that never got released? Was it legal pressure? Family pressure? Or something else entirely? Something that made her stop, right before revealing too much? Because if everything up to this point feels intense, then whatever she held back might be even bigger. And that's the part no one can ignore anymore. Because this news, it's not slowing down. It's getting deeper, darker, more complicated with every passing moment. And right now, it feels like the truth is closer than ever, but also just out of reach. Like something is sitting there, waiting to come out. And when it does, it might change everything again. And just when it felt like this news couldn't spiral any further, it did. Because what happened next didn't just add fuel to the fire, it blew the entire thing wide open. Within hours of that missing second statement, the internet turned into a full-scale battlefield. Not discussion, not debate.
War.
Millions of views flooding in. Hashtags climbing worldwide. People choosing sides like this was a live courtroom playing out in real time. On one side, you had the defenders. They were loud,
Passionate.
relentless, saying Annie was being torn apart unfairly. That anyone under this kind of pressure would sound emotional, unstable, even inconsistent. Stop twisting her words. She's clearly overwhelmed. This is what trauma looks like. And for a moment, that argument made sense. Because imagine being watched like that. Every pause questioned. Every word dissected. Every silence turned into suspicion. That kind of pressure? It can break anyone. But then there was the other side. And they weren't holding back. These aren't normal statements. Why does everything sound so vague? She knows something, she's just not saying it. And that's where things got dangerous. Because now, this wasn't about facts anymore. It was about perception. And perception spreads faster than truth. Clips of Annie's live stream were being replayed nonstop. Slowed down.
Zoomed in.
Enhanced. People weren't just listening to what she said. They were watching how she said it. The way her voice shifted. The moments her eyes moved. The pauses that lasted just a little too long. Even so-called body language experts started jumping in, breaking down her expressions frame by frame, claiming those micro-reactions meant one thing. She was holding something back. Now, whether that's true or not, at this point, it didn't even matter. Because once that idea enters the conversation, it becomes reality for a lot of people. And the situation escalated again. Because now, public figures started reacting. Not directly naming Annie, but clearly referencing the case. One post read, "If the news keeps changing, maybe it's time we ask why." Simple, but powerful enough to go viral instantly. Millions of views. Thousands of replies. And just like that, the pressure doubled. Because now it wasn't just the internet watching. It was everyone. Media outlets began pushing harder headlines. Carefully worded, but impossible to ignore. New developments raised serious questions. Leaked materials sparked growing concern. Family narrative under scrutiny. Notice something? The tone had changed. This wasn't sympathy anymore. This was suspicion. And Annie was right in the center of it. Every move she made became a headline. Every second of silence became a theory. And here's the most dangerous part. The longer she stayed quiet, the louder the speculation got. Because silence in a moment like this doesn't calm things down. It amplifies everything. People started asking new questions, not just about the past, but about what might still be hidden. What if that audio clip wasn't the full version? What if there was more? What if those messages were just fragments of something bigger? And then came another twist. A claim started circulating that shook everything again. According to online discussions, investigators were now looking deeper into the timeline than ever before. Not just the day Nancy disappeared, but the days leading up to it, the patterns, the behavior, the small details no one paid attention to before. Because sometimes the biggest answers aren't in the main event. They're in what happens before it. And suddenly, every detail mattered. Every gap in communication, every unexplained moment, every shift in behavior. People began building entire timelines, minute by minute, trying to reconstruct what those final days looked like. And the more they built, the more one idea kept coming back. This didn't feel sudden. It felt like something that had been building, quietly, slowly, under the surface, until it reached a point where something had to give. And that idea, it changed everything. Because if this wasn't random, then it means something led to it. Something inside that house. Something no one fully understands yet. And then just when the chaos reached its peak, something unexpected happened. The tone shifted again. Not louder, not more aggressive, but darker. Because people started asking a different kind of question. Not what happened, but who knew it was coming? That question hit differently. Because it suggests awareness. It suggests warning signs. It suggests that whatever happened might not have been a complete surprise. And if that's true, then the news isn't just complicated, it's unsettling. Because now, Annie's final words before going silent started to echo again. There are things I haven't said yet. That line. It didn't feel like a statement anymore. It felt like a warning. Like something was sitting there, waiting. And the more time passed without answers, the heavier that line became. Because people aren't just waiting anymore. They're expecting something. Something big. Something that explains everything. Or changes everything. Because right now, nothing feels complete. Not the timeline. Not the statements. Not the evidence. It all feels like pieces. Pieces of a news that hasn't fully come together yet. And that's what makes it so intense. Because when a news is unfinished, people don't walk away. They lean in. They watch closer. They question more. And they wait. Wait for the moment everything finally clicks. But here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. What if that moment doesn't bring clarity? What if it brings something worse? Because every new detail, so far, hasn't simplified the news. It's made it more complicated, more layered, more uncomfortable. And if that pattern continues, then whatever comes next might not answer questions. It might create even more. And that's where things stand right now. A case that started as a missing person mystery, now sitting in the middle of speculation, tension, and unanswered questions. With one person at the center of it all. Not confirmed guilty, not proven innocent, just watched, analyzed, questioned, and surrounded by a news that keeps getting bigger, darker, and harder to ignore. Because if everything we've seen so far is just the surface, then whatever is still hidden might be the part no one is ready for. And when that finally comes out, if it comes out, it won't just change the news. It'll change everything. So now I want you to really think about everything you just heard. Because this isn't just another news you scroll past and forget. This is a case that started with one simple question. Asterisk, where is Nancy? Asterisk, but now. That question feels almost secondary. The real question is, what was already happening before she disappeared? Because if even a fraction of these leaks, messages, and statements are true, then we're not looking at a random incident anymore. We're looking at something deeper, something hidden, something that might have been building for a long time. And Annie, she's right at the center of it. So, I need your honest opinion. Do you think Annie is just a person under extreme pressure being misunderstood by the internet? Or do you think she knows more than she's saying and something bigger is being kept quiet? And what about that audio? real, or perfectly timed manipulation. Because right now, the internet is completely divided, and your voice matters more than ever. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't hold back. If you made it this far, you already know this news is far from over. More leaks could drop. More statements could surface. And the next update? It might be the one that changes everything. So don't miss it. Hit like if you want the truth, or at least what they don't want you to see. Subscribe right now and turn on notifications, because when the next piece of this puzzle comes out, you'll want to be the first to know.